Before Netflix ever touched the story, the original House of Cards from Britain was darker, sharper, and far more dangerous. Fact 1.
A well-meaning fool, no background and no bottom.
The most famous line in House of Cards was never written in the novel, but was born on set when screenwriter Andrew Davies needed a way for Francis Urquhart to deny everything without sounding guilty. Ian Richardson delivered, "You might very well think that. I couldn't possibly comment," with such silky menace that the crew froze in admiration, and the phrase instantly defined his character.
Surprised? Well, everybody can be valuable. That's my philosophy.
Within weeks of broadcast, journalists and real politicians were repeating it in interviews as the perfect non-denial denial. Newspapers printed it in headlines and the public started quoting it at dinner parties. It turned polite evasion into an art form. Richardson later said the line was like a dagger wrapped in velvet. The power of that moment came from his perfect stillness, the slight smile, the pause before comment. It made viewers complicit, as if they too shared his secret. That single line became a symbol of British cynicism, proof that language could wound without ever raising its voice, and it remains one of television's most quoted sentences decades later.
Dear old Patrick, knocking shop in Marrakesh, very wide of the mark.
Fact 2.
I am a loyal servant of the state, and proud to be so.
Francis Urquhart was never meant to be a caricature of any living politician. Instead, he was built from Shakespeare's great villains. Andrew Davies described him as Richard III in a Savile Row suit, a man whose charm made his cruelty acceptable. Ian Richardson studied stage soliloquies to master the rhythm of confession, letting Urquhart speak directly to the camera as if whispering to an accomplice. That innovation drew audiences into his corruption, making them both witness and partner. Every glance into the lens was rehearsed with surgical precision until it felt like seduction. Richardson believed that a flick of the eyebrow could say more than a shout ever could, and his calm voice carried the weight of poison. The performance blended theatre and television so seamlessly that critics called it evil in perfect tailoring. By grounding the character in Shakespearean tragedy, the series elevated political scheming to something almost royal in its darkness. Viewers didn't just watch Urquhart manipulate others, they felt invited to enjoy it. That uneasy pleasure was the secret to his lasting power.
Personal and family reasons. Shame.
Fact 3.
But altering the computer files at central office after the share deal.
Ian Richardson nearly missed the role that defined his career. Producers first approached a more famous actor who rejected the script as too cruel to enjoy, fearing audiences would hate him. When Richardson auditioned, he read for a smaller part, but his measured tone and aristocratic composure transformed the room.
Well, yes, my wife is very loyal.
The director whispered, "That's our Urquhart!" And from that moment, the production revolved around him. Richardson hesitated, unsure whether he wanted to live inside such a manipulative mind, yet the challenge was irresistible. On set, he stayed half in character, pacing quietly and testing lines under his breath. Crew members said he could switch from warmth to ice in a heartbeat. By the second episode, everyone knew no one else could wear that mask. His portrait on the promotional posters, with the cold eyes and faint smirk, became instantly iconic. The performance earned him awards and a reputation for elegant menace. To Richardson, Urquhart was a devil who learned perfect manners, and that contradiction made him unforgettable. Fact 4.
No one's going down. No one's going to spill anything.
Hidden behind the writing team was a real political insider whose name was kept secret for decades. This shadowy advisor reviewed scripts to ensure that every betrayal, leak, and whispered threat felt authentic. He corrected dialogue, replaced polite phrases with the language of real power, and confirmed that some of the nastiest tricks were drawn straight from life. One private meeting scene was allegedly lifted word for word from an actual conversation in Westminster. When journalists later asked how the writers captured the political world so perfectly, Davies simply smiled and said, "We had help." The advisor once joked that the series made Parliament look almost too clean. Rumours spread that several MPs recognised themselves and were not amused. The accuracy gave the drama a chilling realism that blurred fiction and fact. Viewers thought it was satire. Insiders said it was reportage with better lighting. That collaboration kept the show grounded in truth, making Urquhart's manipulations disturbingly believable and giving House of Cards its sinister authenticity.
No one's going down. No one's going to spill anything.
Fact 5.
Do you think he tipped his brother off about those shares?
I find it impossible to believe that Henry Collingridge could do a thing like that.
The rooftop scene where Mattie Storin falls to her death became one of television's most unforgettable moments. Originally, it was written as a violent struggle, but Ian Richardson suggested something quieter, colder, and infinitely more terrifying. His idea was to let Urquhart talk her into despair, ending with that soft smile before the fatal push. Filming took place over 2 freezing nights with wind machines roaring across London rooftops. The crew watched in silence as Richardson adjusted his tie after the act, turning murder into etiquette. The absence of music made the moment almost unbearable. Viewers gasped, then fell silent, unsure whether to hate or admire him. Critics called it elegant evil, praising the restraint that made it far more disturbing than blood or screams. The controversy only boosted the show's reputation, and the image of Mattie's fall burned itself into pop culture. Even years later, fans quote the line before the push as if it were a spell. It was the moment that sealed House of Cards as the most chilling political story ever told.
You might very well think that. I could not possibly comment.
Fact 6.
A party conference can be many things.
When Francis Urquhart turned and spoke straight to camera, it shocked viewers who weren't used to being addressed by villains. The technique wasn't planned as a gimmick, but as a confession, a theatrical soliloquy brought into living rooms. Ian Richardson rehearsed those looks with a mirror until he found the exact distance between charm and threat. His voice would drop to a whisper.
Michael Samuel's environment. Intelligent, sensitive, caring, all in the same sentence. I bet you.
Inviting the audience to lean closer, and then he'd strike with a cruel joke. The result made people feel they were part of his scheme, smiling with guilt every time he broke the silence. The writers loved how it exposed our complicity. We didn't just watch corruption, we enjoyed it. Each glance became a secret handshake, each smirk a reminder that power is seductive. Directors framed these moments like portraits, lit so his eyes caught the light while the world behind him blurred away. Richardson compared it to pulling the viewer into the snake's coil. The innovation was copied endlessly in later dramas, but never matched for precision. By blending Shakespearean confession with modern television realism, House of Cards changed how audiences connect to anti-heroes. It made the viewer both witness and accomplice, a dangerous intimacy that still feels new decades later. Fact 7.
A political scandal, or a scandal about something people rarely understand, sex or money.
The shoot was far from glamorous. Many scenes were filmed in cramped corridors that smelled of dust and stale coffee because authentic government buildings were off-limits. Crews hauled heavy lights through maze-like offices while politicians actually worked in the rooms next door. The schedule was brutal, often starting before dawn to catch empty streets for exterior shots. Ian Richardson thrived on the pressure, calling the chaos pure theatre. He preferred single takes, believing that exhaustion created the right brittleness for Urquhart's patience snapping. The camera team fought reflections from endless windows, using dulling spray on every pane of glass. Some scenes were ruined by passing taxis honking outside Westminster. The sound editor joked that London itself was a recurring character. Despite constant interruptions, the production finished on time, largely thanks to Richardson's discipline and Robin Coles's meticulous direction. The sense of tension behind the camera bled into the show's atmosphere, giving every frame a nervous energy. Watching it now, you can almost feel the real stress vibrating underneath the performances, which is exactly what makes it so convincing. Fact 8. The haunting theme that opens House of Cards wasn't originally written for the series at all. Composer Jim Parker had drafted a melancholy trumpet piece for a documentary about London, but reworked it when the producers needed something both regal and sinister. He added the subtle organ chords to suggest church pomp twisted by ambition. That slow build, half national anthem and half funeral march perfectly captured Urquhart's world. Richardson timed his opening walk down the corridor to its rhythm, turning every step into ceremony. The music was recorded in one night with just 5 musicians and a lot of echo. Parker wanted it to sound like power echoing in an empty hall. Viewers said the melody felt like the voice of conscience, soft, proud, and doomed. Over the trilogy, it became shorthand for betrayal. A few notes were enough to chill anyone who recognized them. Later, political documentaries borrowed its tone but never its elegance. The piece won a BAFTA Craft Award and still plays at retrospectives today. In an age of loud soundtracks, its quiet menace reminds us that true authority rarely shouts, it hums.
And I shall, of course, give my absolute loyalty to whoever emerges as my leader.
Fact 9.
My information is you're in deep trouble.
Really?
Not you personally, of course.
That's a relief.
When House of Cards ended, no sequel existed on paper. Andrew Davies intended a self-contained tragedy, but the public reaction was so intense that letters flooded in, demanding more. The producers hesitated, fearing that continuing might dilute perfection. Then came an idea. What if Urquhart actually survived politically and climbed higher? That spark led to Play the King and the final cut, creating a full trilogy. Each installment peeled away another layer of his soul while keeping the same dark wit. Richardson welcomed the challenge of showing corruption aging like fine wine, richer, more bitter, more dangerous.
A new king, a new age of hope and peace and spiritual growth, etc.
The writing explored monarchy, media, and memory without losing the personal cruelty that defined him. Filming sequels years apart let audiences see time working on the character's face, deepening the sense of history. Critics feared repetition but were surprised by how natural the continuation felt. What began as a single story evolved into one of television's first truly serialized political sagas, proving that power, once tasted, always demands another course.
What a rigmarole. A full state funeral now. The woman simply hung around too long.
Fact 10.
I have to make a phone call. One does feel that poor old Hal deserves a proper send-off.
Despite its acclaim, House of Cards faced trouble overseas. Several broadcasters hesitated to air it, calling the tone too cynical for democracy. In some countries, officials worried that citizens might see too much of their own governments reflected in Urquhart's schemes. One station delayed the premiere until after an election to avoid comparisons with real scandals. In others, entire episodes were trimmed to remove dialogue deemed disrespectful to authority. The irony was delicious. Politicians trying to censor a show about censorship and manipulation. Andrew Davies found the controversy hilarious, saying, "It proved our point better than any review." Viewers eventually discovered uncut versions on imported tapes, spreading its reputation underground. The ban only increased curiosity, turning the series into forbidden fruit for political junkies. Decades later, those same countries proudly screened it unedited, admitting that the satire had aged better than their excuses. Every attempt to silence House of Cards merely reinforced its message: power hates a mirror. And that, perhaps, is why the story still feels dangerous whenever it plays.
Do you want it?
Yes, I do.
That's good.
I also know I'm the best man for the job.
You sure as shit better be.
Fact 11.
Francis, Patrick, good of you to spare the time.
The costumes in House of Cards were designed to whisper power rather than shout it. The wardrobe team built Urquhart's image around subtle tailoring. Dark navy, double-breasted, always immaculate but never flashy. Every tie was chosen to suggest calm dominance. Blue when he wanted trust, burgundy when he planned betrayal. The suits were slightly tighter in the shoulders to make him stand straighter, forcing that commanding posture viewers associated with confidence. Ian Richardson joked that he felt like a well-pressed serpent. The fabrics were never pure black because the designer believed true evil hides behind elegance. For contrast, Mattie Storin's clothes softened over the series, tracing her naivete as she drifted into danger. In meetings and corridors, Urquhart's crisp white shirts acted like armour, reflecting light and attention. Even his cufflinks were chosen to gleam just before a lie. The costume department said his wardrobe had its own narrative, each outfit a clue to mood and intent. When he finally removed his jacket in private scenes, it was meant to feel like undressing authority itself. Few viewers noticed consciously, but the effect was hypnotic, power expressed through cotton and silk.
Good morning to you, Miss Story.
And to you.
Fact 12.
As Chief Whip, it's one's business to get to know these things.
Is it?
So that one can move swiftly to help if necessary.
Andrew Davies wrote the first draft of House of Cards in a burst of anger after reading endless news stories about political hypocrisy. He believed the system thrived on charm disguising cruelty and wanted a character who embodied that contradiction. The early drafts were far nastier than what aired. Urquhart originally poisoned a rival and laughed during the funeral. Davies trimmed those moments to keep the tone clever rather than grotesque. He also added the running motif of chess references, symbolizing strategy over brute force. Each episode's title hides a line from Shakespeare, another secret nod to its theatrical DNA. Some of the sharpest insults were lifted from real interviews with anonymous MPs. The writer said, "The fun was letting villains speak politely while stabbing each other linguistically." During production, new lines were scribbled on napkins and handed to Richardson moments before filming, trusting his instincts to make them sing. That spontaneity kept the dialogue feeling alive, as if politics were unfolding in real time. The script's rhythm, measured, ironic, dangerous, became as recognizable as the theme music itself.
No, I don't want any of these stupid little things. Go away.
Fact 13.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Little Brit!
Oh! Don't you touch me again!
The success of House of Cards rippled far beyond Britain, inspiring political dramas from Scandinavia to Japan. Producers abroad studied its pacing and tone, trying to capture that balance of elegance and menace. The American remake decades later borrowed its skeleton but replaced irony with aggression, proving how culturally distinct the original had been. Ian Richardson watched part of the US version before his death and called it a fine production missing a smile. Critics agreed the British approach felt colder, more personal, like gossip whispered over brandy. In Europe, filmmakers began using the same slow camera movements and confessional looks to explore their own corridors of power. Even parodies appeared, with comedians imitating Urquhart's polite cruelty. The show turned political storytelling into an exportable format. Its DNA can be found in every modern drama where power meets charm, from Borgen to Succession. Few series can claim to have reshaped how nations imagine their leaders, yet this one did, with impeccable diction and a knowing glance.
Francis Urquhart has my absolute support, and when he's Prime Minister, as I confidently expect he will be, I shall be proud to serve in his government.
Fact 14.
The second is addressed to your brother from the Conservative Party Sales and Literature Office in Smith Square.
Behind his poised exterior, Ian Richardson carried a deep fear that the role would consume him. He confessed to friends that living as Francis Urquhart too long made ordinary politeness feel like manipulation. Between takes, he sometimes stayed silent, worried that casual conversation might sound insincere. His wife noticed he began finishing sentences with, "Yes, my dear," in the same cadence Urquhart used before striking the line between acting and being blurred. Richardson admitted in later interviews that the character haunted his sleep, always planning, always watching, yet he was grateful for the artistic challenge. It was the role that gave him immortality. When the trilogy ended, he kept one of Urquhart's ties as a reminder of the price of power. After his death, fans placed those same ties on memorial statues as tribute. The fear that the part might swallow him became strangely poetic. It proved how completely he had embodied corruption with charm.
Oh no, definitely not. There are some things a gentleman never discusses. Quick as you can, please, driver. I'm running rather late.
Fact 15.
Yes, I know. Very irritating still to be waiting on yesterday's man.
Decades after its release, House of Cards still shapes how audiences imagine British politics. The phrase FU, Urquhart's initials, became shorthand for ruthless ambition. University courses teach the show as a study in language, ethics, and persuasion. Politicians admit it influenced how they speak publicly, some even copying Urquhart's pauses to sound more deliberate. Journalists reference it whenever scandals break, describing ministers as pulling a Francis Urquhart. The scripts are archived in the British Library alongside Shakespeare and Austen, cementing its cultural weight. Younger viewers discover it online and are surprised by how modern it feels. Its legacy lies not just in cynicism, but in precision, the idea that words themselves can be weapons. Every revival, remake, and political satire since owes something to that polished menace first broadcast in 1990. The show proved that the most dangerous conspiracies aren't hidden in darkness. They're delivered with a smile, and that, more than any twist or murder, is why House of Cards endures.